Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for spending your hour with us today for our Wednesday webinar series. My name is Alice Fox, and I'm the Director of Talent Delivery at Talent Connections. Please, in our chat, we do have our chat available, so feel free to introduce yourself, say hello while we're waiting for everyone to populate in our meeting today. We're so excited about this topic of employer branding essentials, launching an employee advocacy program. So as I said, feel free to say hello, tell us about yourself, where you're coming from today as well. So also, a few housekeeping items before we get started. This is a 1-hour recorded webinar. If you have any technical questions, please email Alice Fox at talentconnections.net. Maury, if you can go ahead to the next slide for us as well. Participants will be muted. However, as I said, we do have the chat feature, so feel free to say questions. Will kind of be going along. This is as interactive as you want to make it. So definitely, if you do have any things that you'd like to put in the chat of questions, we are going to be answering those along the way. Also, we do have the question and answer feature that is going on as well. So today I'm pleased. Also, one more thing is this webinar is approved for 1 SHRM professional development credit, and that activity code will be given at the conclusion of the webinar. Today, I am pleased to introduce 2 speakers. We have Michael Glenn, who owns Agility Hire, an employer branding service firm, and is the founder of Employer Branding EXP, which offers virtual events and workshops, and they're going to talk about some of those later on. Maury is Hanigan is the CEO of SparcStart, an innovative recruiting platform that uses video to differentiate jobs, connect the candidates, strengthen employer brands, and make recruiting more productive. Thank you. They're going to tell about themselves a little more as we go here, but thank you so much to Michael and Maury for joining us today. Take it away.
Hey everyone that's joined, thank you for joining us today about this webinar, Employer Branding Essentials, launching an employee advocacy program. Again, I'm Michael Glenn. Thanks for joining. I do have a conference or an event coming up on May 21st. It's called Employer Branding EXP. You can go get a complimentary pass over at employerbrandingexp.com. And actually, the seats are a little bit limited, so you might want to grab them while they're still available. Also, we've got a workshop. We have workshops coming up, one here in Atlanta on June 10th. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on, but I'm going to pass it over to Maury.
Great. Thanks, Michael. Hi, I'm Maury Hanigan. I'm CEO of SparcStart. We are a recruitment marketing platform that increases recruiter productivity. We are very video driven and believe very strongly in the power of informal video. And I'm ready to start today. We've got a lot of great information about employee advocacy programs. I think we are seeing them grow in popularity and strength as people start to recognize what a hugely powerful marketing engine they are for employer brand and even just for job marketing. So Michael, do you want to start and lead us off?
Oh, yeah. Let's jump right in. So I for all of you that are on this call, you probably may have heard of employee advocacy, but Maury, just give us a definition of like what employee advocacy is today, and then maybe differentiate it between like, let's say brand advocacy.
Okay, yeah, a lot of people confuse brand and employer advocacy, and they really are very different things, different purposes, and really different execution. The first thing, obviously, is content. The kinds of content you share for employer brand advocacy are often about your product, right? It's about what your product does, all of that. But with employer brand advocacy, what you're really talking about is what it's like to work there, things that are important to employees. So for SparcStart, for our brand advocacy, you know, we talk about recruitment marketing platform. But when we are talking to customer service people, data analysts, developers, people that might work for us, we're talking about very different things. So the content and the perspective is very different. It's also obviously a different audience. If for SparcStart, we would talk to heads of global TA. If we were doing brand advocacy, but for employer advocacy, we're talking to very specific people. We're talking to data analysts, researchers, customer service, very different audience. None of those people would ever buy our product, but they're people who would work and contribute to the organization. And the last big difference is segmentation. Almost always with brand advocacy, you have one message going out to your audience, right? Those would be the buyers of your product. But with employer brand, you can really segment your message depending on which of your employees you have sharing and what content you give them. So if one of the goals of your employee advocacy program is to strengthen, let's say, your recruitment for your warehouse people, then you would want to have your current warehouse workers share, and you would give them very specific content about what it's like to be a warehouse worker at your organization. So you can really segment it and and you might have another separate program going on for finance. Because if you needed to really strengthen your appeal or your inflows in that area. So you can really be much more targeted with your employee advocacy than brand. Brand needs to be kind of your main message to all people who could potentially buy your product. When you get down to employee advocacy, you can really be very specific and very targeted.
Yeah, that is huge. I know there, and thanks for that distinction there between the two. Right now, a lot of companies are, um, focusing on attracting talent, and there's been a lot of changes in how they do that. So why is it so critical right now for maybe companies to even focus on employee advocacy, and like what are some of the key benefits?
Some of the reasons to do it. The very first one is credibility. I think particularly with all the AI generated content out there, people are becoming kind of jaded about the information they're seeing. And think about if a friend of yours recommends a movie or a restaurant and says, hey, this is really good. Think about how credible that is to you. And you can see an ad for a restaurant, and maybe it's good, maybe it's not. But when you have somebody who goes, oh my heavens, we just ate there, it was fabulous, that really resonates with you. It's got real credibility. So translate that to a job candidate. If someone they know says, hey, I work here, and here's how challenging it is, here's how valued I feel, here's the variety to the work I get to do, whatever it is, that's really going to resonate with you. So credibility, there's nothing you can do that more credible than deliver a message from somebody that the candidate or the potential candidate already trusts. The second piece is the volume and the targeting. I talked a little bit about targeting, but realize your employees are connected to other people who have similar backgrounds, similar education. They worked in similar organizations. So if you're recruiting nurses, your current nurses went to school with other nurses. They've probably worked at other healthcare organizations. Their social media is probably full of other nurses. Like, Michael, you and I, our LinkedIn connections are full of TA people because this is what we do for a living. We go to conferences, we meet people, we have, friends in the industry. That's true of your employees as well. So if you want to target developers, if you want to target, technicians, whatever, your current employees are connected to those folks. So it's so incredibly efficient for targeting and reaching all of those folks. It's really powerful. And the last thing is the earned media value. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this in a couple minutes, but quickly, earned media value is the money you would have had to pay to get comparable visibility for your message. So if you were to do sponsored ads on LinkedIn, or if you were to actually pay for your employer brand advertising, when you do it through employee sharing, which is organic traffic, you don't have to pay for it, but you can calculate what it would have cost you to get comparable exposure. And that dollar value is really important, especially now with budgets being tight, people being uncertain about what they've got. Free is great and really powerful.
Yeah, that's all huge. I know those are some really good benefits, and having that credibility is really big these days because honestly, there's probably been a lot of lost trust with the last couple of years with the layoffs and stuff like that. So it's really good to have this employee advocacy program. But to be honest with you, Maury, I just, let's be honest, is it, I know you do this quite a bit and you do this, with a lot of companies, but should everybody start an employee advocacy program, and are there any risks with it?
Oh yeah, no, the answer is no. We try to talk people out of this every once in a while, even though they use the SparcStart program to manage their employee advocacy programs. There are some reasons not to do it, and I think people need to be well aware of it. The first one is it requires a lot of work. Now, if you've got a good platform that will help you and make it much easier, but you do have to come up with content. You do have to manage it. You do need to be on top of this. This is not a set it and forget it kind of program. So somebody's got to be dedicated to making sure that the program is always moving forward and that things are working well. There's also a high risk of failure. I can't tell you the number of companies we talked to who had an employee advocacy program. They went out and said, hey, who'd like to share content? And they got all these people to raise their hand. And for 3 months, maybe 4, everything went great. And at 6 months, it all just kind of fizzled and died. That's not great for anybody's career to be managing a program that really ran out of steam and died. And there are a lot of reasons why that happens, and a lot of what we'll talk about today and really more at our workshop about what you need to do to set up so you've got success. So you don't just have a great idea that isn't really thought through and doesn't really go anywhere. And the third and last piece is really that these programs are often underappreciated. I've sort of joked that I've never seen anybody promoted because they ran a great employee advocacy program. But the reason for that is not that the employee advocacy programs aren't powerful, but that the people running them aren't sharing the data that's really compelling. They don't build the business case of what they're actually doing. And so that really, people go, oh yeah, you've got people sharing on their social medias. Yeah, that's nice. But tell you what, Michael, let's do a quick poll here on what you think you could actually generate in earned media value. And Alice, employer branding. If you had 20 employees sharing content twice a month on 2 of their social media accounts, how much free advertising would that create? Go ahead. I'm going to ask everybody who's on this too. Do you think you're going to produce $384 worth of, would it cost you that much to do a comparable amount of visibility? Would it be 3,800? Anybody going for $38,000? 384,000? Anybody feeling bullish at 3 million? So we're just talking just 20 employees. We're not talking your entire organization, just 20 employees that are just twice a month. Go ahead and fill this out.
We have it's jockeying for the lead back and forth between 3,840 and 38,400 is jockeying. So we'll see. We need a couple more people here to answer our poll and see. We're at halfway here. If everybody can take some time, take a second and answer the poll question on there. We'll give it a few more seconds here.
Alice, I can't see it, so you're going to have to publish results for all of us.
Yep. As soon as it's going here, like I said, it's kind of jockeying back and forth. If we could have just a couple more people answer, they're wavering between 3,840 and 38,400. So we'll see. I'll end it in just a minute. If we can have a couple more people who can, I know everybody's on their lunch right now, to answer, and we'll be able to see what they say.
Both of those are good numbers.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
I'd take $3,800 for free and $38,000 for free if anybody wants to mail me a check.
That's for sure too. So here we go. All right, I'm going to publish them, finish the poll up, and all right, can you see?
Yep, we've got it. So everybody knew it wasn't $384. I'm glad you're more ambitious than that. We had half of people at 3,840, and 38% at 38,000. 13% said 384,000. Okay, tell you what, I'm going to show you how you calculate this, and you're going to be able to do it yourself. We'll hold off on the answer for that. Go down. There we go. All right, I'm going to flip over. If any of you want to do this yourselves, I'm going to really quickly go through a scenario, and I'll come back to this slide. But let me take you to the ROI calculator that we have, and just run you through really quickly what we did here. You can go, this is on the SparcStart ROI calculator. It's not gated. You can plug your own numbers here and see what you could get for your organization. But let's just do a quick run through here. Let's assume that you had 20 brand ambassadors, right? That's what we were talking about. So just 20 people that are going to share. You would, I mean, ideally you'd have your recruiter sharing, you might have campus ambassadors sharing. You know, the 20 number is just a good plug number. It depends on the size of your organization. And let's look at how many times you ask them to share. So let's just go twice a month, which is what I think we put in here. And the number of platforms shared, we're going to do that as 2 as well. And so we're going to have people share a total of 4 times a month, right? Every other week they share on LinkedIn and X or LinkedIn and TikTok. So you've got 48 shares per year per employee, or 48 times every employee is going to share, times your 20 employees. You've got 960 total annual shares going on here, right? Number of impressions, this depends on your employees. The average is 1,600. So for right now, let's just do 1,600, assuming that people are connected to roughly 1,600. If you've got younger employees, they might be connected to a lot more. Your older employees, maybe a few less, but it really depends. So the total number of impressions you've got is 1,536 impressions. If you've got a talent acquisition social media account, we see a lot of organizations that have their own LinkedIn accounts, their own TikTok accounts, and so forth. You could add those in here. I'm not going to add this for the moment, but again, we want you to come in and really customize this later. So let's just take the 20 people we talked about, your 1,536 impressions. Now you want to put in your comparable cost for paid exposure. And this can run the gamut. This is something, if you do sponsored post, you may know this price. If not, someone in your social media account can tell this. If you're recruiting, let's say, warehouse workers, that's a pretty broad audience that you might be paying 15 cents a thousand. But if you're looking for radiology technicians, that's a very specific group, and it's probably going to run you more than $1.25. But let me put in I'll put in 25 cents just for an average cost per 1,000 impression. That's going to give you an earned media, excuse me, an earned media value of $384,000. So most of you are wrong. There was one person who came in at 384,000. And these are just some rare numbers. Let's just go back up and say that you are also going to get 10 of your recruiters to also share, in addition to your 20 brand ambassadors. What does that take you to? That takes you to more than $500,000 that you would have saved on a media budget if you just ran an effective employee advocacy program. Right. So you can play with these numbers. I'd really encourage you to go to the calculator. You can also, you can email these results to yourself. So if you want to go through and put together your numbers and then share them with your boss or share them with whoever, you can have the results emailed to yourself. Really a great way to do that. Okay, I'm going to go back to the presentation. So this is a QR code that'll take you back to that page, or you can go to SparcStart.com ROI calculator. But really encourage you, just go play with the numbers and see what you can come up with. But I think already we've figured out that the results are much bigger than anybody thought. But you want to have these numbers so you can share them with your management to show them the value of what you're doing. But it's just one of the things. Michael, thoughts on all of that? Were you surprised at the numbers or where we came out?
Oh no, I love that calculator, and I think it's very beneficial to really see that, and it shows the value behind the employee advocacy program. Quick funny story, that's something that a lot of employer branders struggle with is showing the value. So having some tools like that is very, very beneficial. But everybody that's on this call, this webinar right now, I'm sure they're like wondering, like, okay, I know we have an employer advocacy program or an employee and brand ambassador program, but is it good? Like, what does a successful program look like? So, Maury, give us maybe your view, like a 10,000-foot overview of like what is a successful program, and maybe are some of the fundamental goals or objectives that you need to have to make it successful.
Yeah. Yep. Well, the first thing I'm going to recommend when you measure is that you use business metrics and not vanity metrics. We see too many people say, oh, I got 14,000 impressions and I got 16,000 likes and I got, so many comments. Those can make you feel good. And to be honest, I'll admit, I look at those for all of our stuff because they are vanity and we all love to feel successful. But that's not what's going to drive the success of your program. Use real business metrics. Earned media value is a business metric. When you actually put the dollar value to it, now you're talking budgets. Now you're talking cost savings. Now you're talking about getting extra value without tying up resources. So earned media value is absolutely a business metric. But also look at, I recommend, it's going to be different probably for everybody on the call. Why are you launching an employee advocacy program, and what problem are you trying to fix? What is it you want to make better in your recruiting process? Do you want more employee referrals? Do you want higher conversions of website visitors to applicants? Do you want to shorten your time to hire? Do you want a higher offer accept rate? Do you want to reduce your ghosting rate? This really look at what is it you're trying to achieve? What is it your whole organization is trying to get better at? And then ask yourself, okay, how can I use employee advocacy to help drive to that goal? So it's really going to depend. There's not one right answer here. It's going to be what's right for you. What's going to be meaningful to your organization to get the organization to the key metrics that are established. So measure them in business goals all the time, not in likes and comments and shares and those kinds of things. So those are, you need to have those. You need to make sure you get visibility for your message. But at the end of the day, make sure you're driving the real numbers.
Yeah, that's all good information. And I know everybody that's on this call and that's in HR, or even maybe in talent acquisition. I'm going to just sidestep here for a second. Job ads are extremely expensive, and the way things are right now, a lot of companies have cut budgets and obviously cut staff. So having the right type of objectives and goals in your employee advocacy program is going to help minimize a lot of those costs in those other areas, right? Those expensive job ads. And that's something that we're going to be discussing a lot more in June with employee advocacy programs, how you can actually reduce hundreds of thousands of dollars, well, in my opinion, a lot of money in job ads. And we still need them. They're not going to go away. But how can you leverage your existing employees out there to really attract talent and get the type of outcomes that you want? And speaking of outcomes, we know that your employees are actually could be more powerful than the brand itself. We know that employees in their networks can sometimes reach as 10 times as more as the brand. So when you start to think about things like that, you start to realize, hey, I might need to invest more in something that is going to be more cost efficient and more effective. And then maybe some of these job boards where you still need them, but you're not getting as maybe the quality or applicants that you really need. So having said all that, I want to pivot here for a second, Maury. We're going to talk about metrics and ROI, because I know HR, you all have to look at reports all the time, and metrics are very important. And it is important for employer branding as well. So we were talking about impressions and clicks, and they're fun to look at. I just saw a meme not too long ago about a marketing meme where a bunch of people were hovering around a laptop and they hit this little button and they launched this program, and they were so excited that they spent $3 million and got one like. But we really
Oops.
metrics, impressions, and clicks, the types of metrics and KPIs that we need for an employee advocacy program.
Yeah, let's do it like that. There are two different sets of goals that we're going to recommend that you do right at the beginning. You want program goals. what is the employee advocacy program itself to do? And if you want to increase your conversion from visitors to applicants, make sure you define your baseline data. Make sure you know what it is today. Make sure you've got 12 solid months of data so that you can go back and say, here's where we were and here's what we've gone to. You don't just want to make it better. You want to make sure that you really do know where you're starting. And seasonally, things like referrals can make a big difference. Undoubtedly, your hiring is somewhat seasonal. We don't see a whole lot of people starting, a new job the day after Christmas. There's some seasonality to everyone's hiring. So make sure you've got good data when you start, and also establish a timeline. Like, if you want to increase referrals, is that over the next 90 days? Is that over the next year? Do you want to increase referrals 10% a year for each of the next 3 years? Have really well-defined goals and timelines for when you're going to achieve those. That's the best way to measure your program. Separately, you also want to have goals for your ambassadors. And a lot of this is just defining what that relationship with your ambassadors is. What's the duration of commitment? This isn't for the rest of their lives. This isn't, oh, become an employee advocate and do this for as long as you work here. Everyone's going to burn out. They're going to get tired. I really like 6-month commitments. I think that's long enough to get some momentum and get people into the habit of sharing, but not so long that you're just, putting your content in front of the same people. I think rotating people out every 6 months. But if you're in, retail, 6 months may not be realistic. You may be lucky if you get 3 months out of someone. So again, you've got to make sure it makes sense for you. But define what it is you're asking people and how often you're asking them to share. This isn't a haphazard, hey, when you think of it, would you make a video and share it on your social media? This is, if we provide you with content, would you be willing on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of every month to share this on your social media? Be very specific about that. That way you can appropriately reward ambassadors when they meet the goals. You've managed expectations and you just get better performance out of everybody when you know exactly what's being asked.
Yeah, that's good. And one of the things that you just mentioned there is how do you kind of keep those expectations chugging along? How do you get any recommendations there?
To keep them going.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, like how do you set
Yeah.
those expectations for your,
Yeah.
just call
Well,
it, yeah.
Yeah. Really having some training in place makes sense. This doesn't, God forbid, please don't do a half-day sit-down training session. It doesn't have to be that involved. But you do want to make sure you've got good ground rules to start with. And one of the things we see a lot of organizations tripped up on is just assigning responsibility for text creation. If you're providing images and videos to your advocates, are they writing the commentary that goes with it? Are you going to write it? If you write it, you keep control and you're sure your message on brand. But if your employees, if a lot of them are connected to the same person, it can feel pretty spammy when 3 different employees say the exact same thing on their LinkedIn posts. You've lost a lot of that credibility. So you want to think through that. You want to set flexibility guidelines for content. What things can you talk about? What things can't you talk about? I was at a meeting where somebody from a retail organization started an employee advocacy program. They didn't think through it. And one of their store managers was doing a post every week and talking about their store sales for the week. Now, the company was a public company and individual store sales weren't public information. And so it created real problems. So letting your employee know, what they can talk about, what would be helpful, and what they can't talk about, and make sure you've got those guidelines there. And if you're going to ask your employees to generate content themselves, it might be, hey, go talk to one of your coworkers, or would you make a video about? Make sure you've got an approval process that's well defined. Can they just create something and share it? We've seen organizations where it's just, hey, talk about what you're working on this week and share it. And the company is perfectly fine with that. Other things, it's like, okay, go ahead, make a quick video about what you're talking about, but it needs to be approved before we can share it. So we'll put it through a system or user platform to do that. Just manage expectations. Make sure people know what you're asking of them. To some degree, protect them. Don't let them get in trouble. Sometimes people get over enthusiastic. They go out there and like the store manager who is just trying to say, hey, we had a great week. Our store sales were up, 12% last week. Take care of your people. let them do it right, and let them know what it is you're asking of them.
That's good. Yeah, I know. And it's one of the steps there. We're just kind of, I don't know. It's hard for me to say this, but a lot of times it's trying to decide like who's going to be, who are you going to pick to be the brand ambassador. We talked about some of the things that you need to kind of keep it going, and obviously training is very important. But a lot of times you have to understand like not only who the brand ambassadors are going to be, who are going to be ideal brand ambassadors, but let me back up 1 second here. I think it's also important to understand like who's not only going to be the brand ambassador, but who's also responsible for a lot of the content that you're going to create. And so what's your experience with defining like the roles and rolling out, let's say, the content creators?
Yeah, content creators are important. There's usually, if you've got oftentimes an employer brand team is doing it, but if they're not really focused on employee advocacy, they may be producing company-wide employer brand and not specific enough. And one of the really important things is to make the content relevant. So if your goal is to increase applications by, let's say, software developers, right? You're adding AI and you need more people who understand AI on your team. The kind of information that's going to be relevant to an AI candidate is very different than the kind of information that's going to be relevant to a sales candidate, right? They're interested in different things. So you want to make sure your content is relevant. This is part of having well-defined goals, understanding what you're measuring, what it is you're trying to do, and then think about what's going to be compelling to that audience. Not just, unfortunately, we see way too much content that's just, oh, the people here are great. We're just like family. I've seen a couple hundred videos that say that, maybe a couple thousand videos. That doesn't really help someone say, wow, that's a really unique opportunity. It's great that people are in a positive environment and they feel accepted and welcomed, and the best things about family. But what might persuade a candidate might be the investment you're making in technology, might be the new markets you're opening, might be your opportunities for internal mobility. People make job moves for very specific kinds of things. And if you can spark interest in that, if you can plant that seed that says, this is an organization where you can get that kind of advanced training, or this is the organization where you can develop expertise in that particular area, that's going to make it really important. And part of what makes this easy is creating and maintaining a content calendar. If you sit down every month and go, oy, what am I going to do this month? What is it we need this month? It can become very draining. The folks we see doing this best, they sit down, quite frankly, about once a year and say, okay, what are the things we want to communicate? Who are the best people to communicate that content? And let's set up a calendar. So we do this like clockwork. Oftentimes they might, actually create a year's worth of content all at once. Do it as a project, have it, set it, and then let it go from there. So this is really important. Sometimes we see organizations tie this in to, things like International Women's Day on March 8th. They make sure they've got some of their, senior women that are going to be highlighted, and that's going to be the content that's going to be shared. They do the same thing for Veterans Day and so forth. But also it lets you delegate perhaps a little of the responsibility for doing content. So if one of the things on your content calendar is you want to really highlight your learning and development, you might go to your head of L&D and say, hey, in September, we really want to, highlight what kinds of opportunities learning and development has here. Would you please, think of somebody who took advantage of whatever program, and find somebody who would be willing to, share their story. They're not going to do all the work for you, but as long as you give people advance notice and you tell them what's coming, you're much more likely to make this easy and keep filling that content calendar with really good information that you want to share.
Yeah, that's good to know. And having a lot of experience in this area in employer branding and content calendars, and there's a lot of tools out there that you can leverage for content calendars. it is a lot of times, to be honest, it's better to have your own. If you're in HR and recruiting, employer branding is sit within HR, just to have your own content calendar. That's my personal opinion because marketing has theirs. They don't kind of want it mixed in with their stuff because it's a lot. Honestly, it's a lot of B2B. But that's all good, Maury. Thank you so much. All right, we're kind of moving on here. We're moving pretty quickly. And I just, curiosity, we talked a lot about the benefits of the employee advocacy program and how to identify those people, obviously metrics, all these things about the employee advocacy program and keeping it going, right? What's your take on like incentivizing an employee advocacy program?
And I'm sorry to interject here. It seems that our chat is not working in some sort of way. So if anyone in the participants have a question, please feel free to use the question and answer feature as we go along to make it as interactive. I will investigate what's going on with the chat, but until then, please feel free to use the question and answer feature for any questions for Michael and Maury as well.
Right, thank you.
Thanks. So going to recognition, highly recommend that you reward ambassadors. And you can do that. We've seen some organizations that do things like send, a coupon for Uber Eats, for, a $20 Uber Eats coupon so people can order lunch as a thank you. Sometimes it's a specialized swag bag, send us a t-shirt or whatever kinds of things. Some company cultures, organizations, that's not part of their culture, but at a bare minimum, there's no reason why for everybody who's participated as an employee advocate, that when it comes around to your, performance review time, that an email shouldn't go out to a boss of each of your advocates with a quick note that says, please keep in mind as you go through performance evaluation that Chris was an employee advocate. They generated $30,000 worth of free, visibility for our brand, or they generated whatever, and they were a valuable member of the team. And this was a valuable contribution to the company. Whether you do it at performance time or whether you do it when they rotate off the program, always give visibility to the people who do it. Anything you can do to recognize your advocates, highly recommend you do that. But then the other piece in terms of visibility is make sure that your successes are getting visible to your management, speak, but also to the business owners and the business leaders. So we recommend at least quarterly that you have a pre-formatted report that goes out that says we generated X number of dollars in earned media value. We, accomplished this goal. We had all of these things going on. Make sure people are aware of the fact that there's an ongoing, record of success here, that there are results here that you're producing all the time. Doesn't have to be big, long formal presentations, but sending this information up your line and then even out to the businesses is really important to get people encouraged, to get them their support in the businesses for actually participating. All of this should be easy to do. If you've got a platform that's helping you manage all this, you've got these numbers at your fingertips. So this is all easy to do.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to talk about a few things here real quickly. And thank you for sharing all that. And to kind of piggyback off what you just said there real quickly about the recognition. Personally, for me, I think it's great to do that and have, because it brings everybody together, it makes everybody feel included, and it really gives them a sense of ownership of what they do, right? Recognizing what they do. So let me talk about this for a second about like platforms. I know for a fact, right? If you are in talent acquisition and you're doing employer branding, or if you're employer branding and sitting just within HR, doing a lot of the employee advocacy stuff that we've just been talking about through like spreadsheets or just manually doing it is almost impossible. Nowadays, there are lots of platforms that are out there. There's definitely a lot of platforms for marketing, and there's platforms for talent acquisition, and there's platforms for employer branding. Let's talk about this. And I know you're the CEO of SparcStart, but and I'm going to say this, you really do need an employee advocacy program. It matters. You can't do this manually. But to be honest, how those that are watching or those that are here, how would you go about choosing a platform that's just right for your organization? What are some things that you would consider?
Yeah. Let me just run through this real quickly. Because, whoops, sorry. Because you do need a platform. The most important thing is you need to be able to measure the results. So if you're trying to do this off a spreadsheet, you don't know what's getting shared. You don't know where it's getting shared. You don't know what it's generating. You can't tie anything back. You really, and if you're asking your employee advocates to do too much work, if you're either trying to email them content or giving them a link to, say, a video that they then have to download to their desktop so they can upload it to LinkedIn so it runs, and you always want to upload a video to LinkedIn, don't link it, because you want to feed the algorithm that will get it shared, and you need to upload it to do that. But if it's too many clicks, people aren't going to do it. So it's really important. If you're going to do this successfully, you have to do it well. A couple of things that I would look at a platform is, can you segment the content for target audiences? You may want different content for your campus ambassadors because you're talking early careers than you want for, let's say you're doing something with finance or for more of your experience. Make that easy. Don't make people hunt for content. And you want the entire thing to be simple. You want it to be really easy. You want it to be one click easy. If someone's got to go through a whole process, they're not going to do it. If you're going to ask your ambassadors to share for you, you've got to make it really, really simple for them to do it, to get all of that. I'd also recommend that you do something that gives you the chance to gamify. That can be fun. We've seen people put, their Southeast region, plays against their West Coast region, and see who shares the most or who gets the most response or whatever. That can make it fun. And people love to win. And this is where we see a lot of the Uber Eats coupons and things like that come in for the team that does the best, but that can make it fun. But you also want a platform that's going to measure all the relevant metrics. You need to know what assets are being used because you get smarter. You get to see who's actually sharing things. You want to know what results each of those assets are using so that you can create, whether it's videos or images or whatever, you can see what an audience is going to interact with, and something that will calculate your earned media value for you. So you've got all that data that you can send up your management ranks. So all of those things are important. There's a QR code here that will take you to a list of 20 questions to ask. It's a PDF you can download. We actually produce this for 20 questions to ask if you are purchasing a video platform. But the questions are pretty much the same for an employee advocacy platform in terms of approvals and content storage and so forth. So it'd be a great place to start. I'd recommend just click on the QR code here and you can go, or else you can find the 20 questions to ask. Again, it's on the SparcStart platform, not gated at all. You can just go ahead and get it. But it's a great set of questions to ask about any platform you're evaluating to see if it's going to meet your needs.
Yeah, that's all good. Thank you, Maury. And I'll piggyback off that too, just real quick, because I know we're coming up on time. One of the things you have to consider is that other organizations are doing this. They're giving out a very good overview of what their company culture is like through storytelling, and being able to do that successfully takes a village, to be honest. Sometimes it doesn't just boil down to one person. It boils down to a lot of people collaborating and coming together. And having the platform, the technology, and the knowledge to do all of that takes time to build all that up. So, Maury, I really appreciate you kind of walking through what some of the steps to kind of get started with the essentials of employee advocacy program. You and I are going to really do a lot more in this in June with a workshop right here in Atlanta. It's June 10th. So if you're watching this and you want to really, really see how it's done, we're going to do a from 1 to 5 employee advocacy workshop in Buckhead. So I'll stop there. We know we got some people on the call. Maybe we'll do a little quick Q&A
Well,
or just chat. Oh,
Michael,
go
before
ahead.
you go there, let me just talk for a second about the workshop, because this workshop's going to be a real hands-on workshop where every participant's going to leave with their own personal playbook. So we're actually going to work through the, goals that make sense for you, objectives, calendars, those kinds of things. We have a lot of things to recommend. Hopefully there'll be a lot of sharing between the groups, but this will be a great, if you've got a program maybe that isn't performing as well as you'd like it to, or you're just about to start a program, or you want to pitch a program. This will be a great half day to come and really get practical, implementable, ideas and plans when you're done. And we're going to do a networking social cocktail hour at the end. So you'll build your network as well, and have other people who are also building programs. Just, talking to other people, the idea generating won't stop at the end of the day. So really encourage, if you're involved in this or you're thinking about this, this is going to be a great half day. It's in person. It's north of Atlanta in Buckhead area. We've made it a really easy place to get to. Lots of highways that are kind of joining there, so we keep you out of the downtown traffic. But really encourage people to register for this. All right, with that, Michael, do we have questions that from our
Let's
audience?
see. Let me
Well,
figure
thank
out.
you so much. I wanted to say thank you so much for all of this great information. I was taking notes for sure. A couple questions then. So for someone who this is new to and kind of need to come up with easy how to, this is step 1, 2, and 3. What would you say those would be of where to start? With all this information, we know the incentives, we know the sales, give you the sales information over social media is a interesting story, and I can see how it happens, especially someone who's just trying to help and trying to get the word out, but and do their best. But tell me, what would you say the first 1 and 2 steps are to start this program? And I would encourage anyone else on the webinar who has questions to go ahead and you can put it in the question and answer feature.
The very first thing I'd recommend is to start small. So one large hotel chain that started an employee advocacy program with 60,000 advocates, which was a little daunting to say the least. Don't think you need, even if you're a company of tens of thousands of employees, start with a pilot group. 20 people is great to get started and see what you learn and see what you generate. Then you may want to expand it. You may want 100 employee advocates. You may want whatever's right for your organization, depending on what you're asking of your advocates and what you're prepared to give your advocates for content. But the very first thing would be to start small. Don't burden yourself with 1,000 people. You need, it's like keeping monkeys in a tree. It can be a lot, so keep it reasonable. And the second step I strongly recommend you do is you set measurable goals for the program. What is it you're trying to accomplish? Don't do an employee advocacy program for the sake of doing it. Is it a certain amount of dollar? Do you need to save money on your spending right now? Do you need to cut back? Are you looking for an alternate way to keep visibility and keep, your employer brand and your job opportunities out there? If that's your goal, set a dollar figure and then go for it. But I would start with those two things. Start small for at least the first 6 months until you've got things up and running, and be very specific about what you want to accomplish, because it's the only way you can succeed. If you said, we've set out to do this and here's what we did, or you may not hit those numbers. You may find they were unrealistic. You may find you don't have the resources you need. You may find you need more people to do it, whatever, but you'll be smarter in 6 months. Win or lose, you're going to be smarter in 6 months. And that's always valuable, because then you can course correct.
Perfect.
And I'll say also as well, communicate. That's my opinion. That's kind of where it really starts. The first step is, hey, we want this. Not just because other companies or organizations are doing this. You want to communicate with the marketing. You want to communicate with every internal comms and say, we want to start an employee advocacy program because it's beneficial to retain our employees, and to to attract a talent, right? So start with communicating and then figure out who's going to own it. Not all the time, employee advocacy is always within HR. It may sit within marketing, but there's a dotted line, so to speak, right, wherever it sits. So just collaborate, communicate with the your organization, your other departments like internal comms and marketing.
Perfect, perfect. Well, if you want to go to the next slide that has your contact information on it there, if anyone who is on does have a question, here are all the ways to reach out to Michael and Maury in terms of their LinkedIn and their websites and then their emails as well. So if anybody does have additional questions that they can ask them and want to do more of a one-on-one, and also as a reminder, the information for their workshop that's going to be coming up in June for sure. So thank you so much. We really appreciate all of the information. Any final thoughts then on this topic?
I think we're seeing, particularly with some of the economic uncertainty and people understanding they might need more flexibility in their budgets, they're not quite sure. I would highly recommend that you start an employee advocacy program now, before your budget is cut, before your funds are frozen, before you find yourself in a situation where you go, wow, we've just invested so much in our employer brand and getting our employer brand out there and visible. And now, we're at a dead stop. Platforms to run these programs, they're not expensive, but they're not free. Having them in place is the best use. They pay themselves in a month easily. But get them in now, get your program up and started now so that you've got them going. So if you do find yourself in a situation where you're pulling back or slowing things down, or maybe have fewer funds to work with, you've got this in place and you're going to protect your employer brand visibility. It's really important that you do that today.
Michael, any closing thoughts?
I think that's it. That sums it up. There's been a lot of changes in the last couple of years with AI as well. We're looking at how that's going to impact HR. We're looking at how it's going to impact talent acquisition and stuff. So how does that impact employee advocacy? I think it's critical that we understand that we are hiring humans. Humans are central to the success of your organization. And what better way to do that with employee advocacy program to show that the people are what really matters. So in light of all that, I think that's another area or angle that employee advocacy really brings to the table. It really brings that human element back, and that's why it's important for people that are interested in your organization that they're going to be working with people and understand what it's like there. And it's not always about technology and AI, in my opinion. Hopefully that makes sense, but that's my final thought on it. So anyways.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you, Gabby, for that information. Thank you. She says, this was very informative. I appreciate what you have shared with us today. So thank you everyone for joining us today for our Wednesday webinar series. A little information about who we are. Talent Connections is a human resources executive search and consulting firm located in Atlanta. Founded in 1999, we have spent over 2 decades, just started our 26th of perfecting our craft in HR services while creating thousands of transformative connections. You can find a link to our sister company, Career Spa, provides career transition and coaching services tailored to each individual. If you want to go, Maury, to the last slide there, the activity code for this for the SHRM professional development credit is 25-V3KPT. Make sure to note the activity ID number on your recertification application form. And for more information about certification or recertification, please visit the SHRM website at shrm.org/recertification. Remember to mark your calendars for our next Wednesday webinar, which will be Wednesday, as always, June 11th. same time at 12 to 1 o'clock Eastern. Thank you so much to Michael and Maury for today. We really appreciate your time and expertise on this subject. And thank you to everyone for joining us. Have a great day.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.